Creepypastas, internet campfire stories. Remember those? Those stories people wrote to scare us that went viral on the internet 10 years ago? 10 years. 10 years. What? Well, that makes me feel old. If you do remember, there were a ton of them to read, and a lot of them scared a lot of us. We had stories that ranged from characters like Eyeless Jack, who's known to steal your kidney while you sleep, Ticci Toby, a heartthrob for many young girls because of how sinister he looks, and even the creepiest ones like the Russian sleep experiment. A lot of these creepypastas grew with us if you were growing up around its rise, and it's a nostalgic piece of literature that will forever be on the internet. As the times go on though, some stories sadly garnished a bad reputation. Some of our favorite creepypasta stories had been hit with some criticisms and even affected people in real life. I'm going to be talking about 3 of them, and if you're familiar with creepypastas at all, you'll recognize all 3 of them. Let's look at 3 creepypastas with bad reputations. The Slenderman is that tall, faceless, lanky man with tentacles who is always dressed for the occasion and hides in the woods. He messes with people's minds. Over the height of its popularity, with many fan games and fan creations created around its time, the Slenderman affected 3 individuals. 2 who dove a little too deep into the Slenderman's story, and 1 being scarred for life. 2 12-year-old girls named Anissa Weyer and Morgan Geyser dove into the lore of the Slenderman and lured their friend Peyton Lutner into a forest and stabbed her 19 times. That's pretty crazy, right? Why would you do such a thing? Well, they did it because they believed that if they sacrificed a human being, that they'd become one of Slenderman's proxies. A Slenderman proxy is an individual who is under control by the Slenderman. You're basically one of Slenderman's servants. Being a proxy will mean that you would do any command that the Slenderman would wish you to do. That's what these girls firmly believed in. They were so deep into the Slenderman lore that they firmly believed they'd be servants for a tall, faceless man who has a suit on in the woods. Very outlandish, grandiose, and psychotic, I must admit. Luckily though, Peyton survived, and her former friends were sentenced to 25 years to life in a mental institution. One of the former friends, Anissa Weyer, was out on an early release, but will be watched until they turn 37. This affected the creepypasta's reputation pretty badly, as documentaries popped up about the subject, one being the most notable, Beware the Slenderman, which was released on HBO, an outcry from concerned parents. In 2018, an upcoming film adaptation about the Slenderman was going to be released, but due to the controversy now being surrounded around this creepypasta, affected the movie's release date, production, and final product. The movie was left with removed scenes, mostly ones that were the most violent that you would see in horror movies. They essentially had to walk on eggshells, so they were affected badly by the critical nature of the story, but they simply just couldn't escape it. The Slenderman will forever correlate with controversy, and it's pretty sad because it was a fun and spooky story that just brought out the worst out of some individuals. Jeff the Killer is probably one of the most recognized creepypastas. Just look at the image that was attached to the story. It's still pretty spooky, I gotta admit. Jeff the Killer is a serial killer who, after getting his skin burnt from being set on fire, became insane and went after people. I don't know, Jeff reminds me of the Joker because of the whole smile that's going on with his face. But simply put, it's a popular story that was shared in the creepypasta space. How did Jeff get a bad reputation? Well, in 2 ways, Jeff did have that coming. The origin of the image of Jeff the Killer was once believed to be a girl who was on 4chan, where it was said that they photoshopped her face, and she decided to say bye-bye to her life. Luckily, that wasn't true, but that's not the worst reputation Jeff got. Let me tell you a quick story. I once was at work doing my housekeeping job like I normally do, and while I was cleaning, I noticed a magazine. This magazine looked normal until I realized what caught my eye. The magazine had a picture of Jeff the Killer on it, and it had a headline saying that a kid blamed Jeff for his crime. I was dumbfounded when I looked into it. Yes, this is from a tabloid magazine. According to the magazine, Donovan Nicholas was guilty for ending his mom's life. The mother was Heidi Taylor. Donovan claimed he didn't want to hurt her and that the person responsible was Jeff. Supposedly, Jeff was inside of him and made him do it. Honestly, that's not a good excuse whatsoever, but it seems to show that there's an issue that needs to be fixed with this kid. He is now in prison for life with a possible eligibility of parole in 28 years. This story is very sad. I just find it so strange how creepypastas correlate with crime in real life. Not a lot of crime, but it's interesting how it affected two different stories. Now the last one, we're gonna get in really creepy territory. Sonic.exe is a very popular story that's about a cursed copy of Sonic the Hedgehog. There's a few fan versions of the games, and even Markiplier played it. It's a fun playthrough and it's definitely something that would keep me up at night. Sadly, the story didn't survive as a publication because it wasn't a well-written story. Today though, we're talking about the author, not about the story, as this person is the one who's being affected. The author is named Sir J. Hyena, and he was in hot water not too long ago. Hyena was caught role-playing with a minor. At the time of their talks, JC was 26 while the victim was 14. News about this leaked on the internet from the victim and it had people upset. YouTuber Luigikid covered in detail a lot of what happened, and then the day after, JC responded and admitted to role-playing.
So what's going on, my dedicated bros and that's it's me, Luigikid, Sir JC Hyena, if that's how you pronounce it, Hyena, yeah. Not Crimson the Bat, the developer of the Sonic.exe fan game. It's about the guy that has originally posted and wrote the Sonic.exe creepypasta. It seems like he was actually having sexual conversations with a minor. His girlfriend or ex-girlfriend, Shannon Love, reached out to me on Twitter with a wall of text writing, "Hello Renee, I hope you're doing well. I'm sure you remember me. I've been mentioned at least twice on your channel, and unfortunately this may be a third and far more disheartening time. The reason I'm speaking with you privately is because about 2.5 to 3 weeks ago, the original author of Sonic.exe, JC the Hyena, has admitted to me he has engaged in sexual activity with someone under the US age of 18 years old in 2019. As soon as he told me, I not only broke up with him, but I cut off all ties with him entirely."
JC said they were in a tough part of their life and felt utterly regretful for what they've done. JC exclaimed that they weren't a predator of any kind and was simply desperate to roleplay.
As for the allegations regarding, I'm afraid they are regrettably true. But before you judge me about that, please listen to what I have to say on the matter. Will you listen? And of course I said I will listen. He said, "So this all happened 2 years ago. I randomly found this guy on Discord, and like a complete dumbass, I wanted to roleplay with him. Unfortunately, this was during a very stressful time of my life and I kinda wanted to do some extreme roleplay with him. He told me he was underage, and I swear to God, a part of me was screaming at me to stop right there, but for some reason I didn't. I wasn't thinking clearly, and I just kept doing it, and it was the biggest mistake I've ever made in my life. I've regretted it ever since. Can I be honest with you, Luigikid? Like really, all the way honest with you. My life isn't so glamorous. Sure, I created a creepypasta everybody knows by this point, but that's about it. My whole life has just been nothing but stress and misery. My parents always argue over the stupidest things. I'm antisocial to the point of never leaving the house, and my dad is always emotionally abusing me over every single thing I do. He actually threatened to kick me out of the house if I so much as to fail class. 2 years ago, I was still in college and I honestly wasn't doing good during it. I was under a lot of stress and depression, and I unfortunately couldn't talk to much of anybody about it because I was forced to use my computer to focus on my studies. I didn't RP with because I'm a pedophile. I probably did it out of stress-induced weakness. I've regretted doing it ever since then. And the reason I kept it a secret from everybody, because I was that ashamed of myself for doing it in the first place. I know everything I said about why this all happened doesn't excuse the fact that I did it, but it's the truth, and I really am sorry for doing it. I've regretted ever doing it, and I've been struggling with not killing myself over it. And I want you and everyone to know that I'm not a pedophile at all."
Reading about both sides of this story gives me the heebie-jeebies, but it's great that we have both sides to sum up what happened. Was what JC did okay? No, not at all. but let's hope that they learn from this and not to do it again. For me personally, the excuses they gave about their bad life does not give them the reason to do this to someone. Hot take, hot take, hot take. I don't know. Also, if you're watching this, do not witch hunt and attack these people. It's too bad these creepypastas have dealt with issues surrounding them. Let's just hope that these type of things don't repeat themselves in the near future. Do you know of any other creepypastas that have bad reputations? Leave it in the comments below.